You are watching Access LaPorte County Channel 97. Coming up next is the June 13th meeting of the Michigan City Board of Cemetery Trustees. You can find more information for this meeting at www.accesslaportecounty.org.
Cemetery Board of Trustees, Michigan City, on Thursday, June 13th, 2024. We need a call to order.
Davis Bush.
Here.
Bernadette Demke. Renee Bauer.
Here.
Stephen Janis.
Here.
Vera Gaston.
Here.
Pastor Dennis Carroll.
Here.
And Kat Hutchins.
Excellent. Next item is the approval of minutes. We need a motion.
I so move.
I second.
Excellent. Any vote? We're going to vote. Anyone, we'll say anyone approves. Let's move on. Does anybody have does anybody not want to approve the minutes? No one will. Okay, then that motion will pass. Now we have some guests. We'll entertain Mary Olds first. She's first on the
No,
list.
this is just, she's not here.
Okay,
She didn't, this is one of their friends.
alrighty. You're up.
Well, actually, why don't we do the bank report first?
Well, we can do that. We can move down to the financial report. And welcome to the gentleman from Horizon.
Thank you very much. As is our custom, we'll start at the top of the summary page that you've been provided. With respect to the permanent maintenance Greenwood account, the account was up 0.33% for the month and 1.32% year to date. Next account that you'll find on the summary page is the permanent maintenance Swan Lake account, and that account was up 0.30% for the month and 1.45% year to date. In the extension fund account, the account was up 0.31% for the month and 1.43% year to date. And with respect to the merchandise and commissions fund account, the account was up 0.40% for the month and is up 1.80% year to date. Turning, we'll then set page examining the account details with respect to the permanent maintenance Greenwood account. The money market is currently yielding 5.21%, which is up from last month's yield of 5.20%. The mutual funds overall yield is up 3.29%, which is flat from last month's yield of also obviously 3.29%. And the overall yield of the account is at 3.89%, which again is flat from last month's yield of 3.89%. Moving to page 3, permanent maintenance Swan Lake account. Mutual funds overall yield is 3.38%, which is very slightly down from last month's yield of 3.29%. And the overall yield in the account is at 4.25%, which is flat from last month's yield, obviously 4.25%. Turning to page 4, the extension fund account. The mutual funds overall yield in that account is 3.41%, which again is very slightly down from last month's yield of 3.42%, and the overall yield of the account is at 4.17%, which is flat from last month's yield of 4.17%. Finally, page 5, the last account to be examined, the merchandise fund. The mutual funds overall yield is at 3.38%, which is flat from last month's yield of 3.38%, and the overall yield in the account is at 4.81%, which again is very slightly down from last month's yield of 4.82%. And with that, I'll turn to the program over Brad, so you can address the performance of the overall market.
Thank you. So this week we had some data that came out on inflation, the CPI and the PPI, so the Consumer Price Index and the Producer Price Index. And both of those numbers that came out surprised to the downside. So that's good news for inflation. It means that inflation is coming down in the direction that the Fed wants to see. And it's not quite down to the 2% target that we've been talking about for a while, but it's heading in that direction. The Fed was unanimous in keeping interest rates unchanged. There was some language that they mentioned on inflation in the minutes that talked about modest further progress toward the committee's 2% inflation objective. So the Fed is acknowledging that they're seeing some progress, but again, they're not quite ready to cut interest rates. The Fed dot plot, which is kind of the basically the prediction or where the Fed members foresee interest rates going this year, came out as well. But there was a lot of disagreement there. There were 4 members that showed no rate cuts in 2024. There was 7 that predicted 1 rate cut, and then 8 foresaw 2 rate cuts. So there's still some disagreement among the Fed members as to how many cuts they're going to make and when it's going to happen. Right now, the market is banking on the Fed cut in September. That's the current odds right now. But obviously, as data comes in, continue to get CPI numbers, PPI numbers, employment numbers are going to be big as well. And that obviously can change. But as of right now, the odds are in favor of the September cut. But again, that could be pushed out to November. It's not too hard to foresee circumstances where that could happen. And again, we're still looking at unemployment, or employment reports. That's kind of top of mind as well. We had initial jobless claims for the U.S. had an uptick this week, up 13,000, up to 242,000 for the week. Our sources are looking at 260,000 as kind of the number where they might start to worry a little bit more. But it looks like the employment situation is still pretty solid in the U.S. So that's where we're at right now with rates. And if you guys have any questions or comments, I can get you those to.
We need a motion to accept the report from the Horizon people.
I make a motion. Second.
This time we'll vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Is Ray with us? Okay, we'll do the bills. Sounds good. We have in front of us a list of bills for payment. And everybody does have a copy, I hope?
Yes.
Got it? Bills for payment copy? Is that one? Okay, he does.
Yes.
Everyone has reviewed this for changes or questions, difficulties? No comments. We'll move ahead to accept the bills as presented, and we will vote on that. And that will be all in favor of accepting the bills as presented.
Motion and second.
Yeah, motion.
I make a motion to pay bills.
Okay, second.
The same.
All right, we'll accept the financial part of the bills as presented. Now we can move on to, hopefully, our guests. Now, on my list, it says Mary Owens requesting granite markers and gardens.
She's not here.
Flat part.
We got to show up.
They didn't show up. All righty. We'll have the Tim and Lauren Simmer and Thaddeus Berjanowski about Green Burial Space burials.
Well, thank you all for giving us time. It's good to be back. It's a return visit, and we thank Jeff for letting us come back. And Renee, we've met you before. Davis and Steve, you've heard us present before from FIRA. And Mr. Carroll, it's nice to meet you this afternoon. We have two members of the Michigan City Sustainability Commission who are very interested in this topic. Representing that commission was Fane Moore, a longtime name in Michigan City, and Tim Bauer, who is so committed and concerned to environmental issues, and they're both here with us. And the two of them and my husband, Larry Zimmer, are all in the Sustainability Commission, so that's a strong voice with us today. Larry and I have lived in Michigan City since January of 2003, well over 21 years. Larry is just finishing 8 years as the president of Michigan City Board of Zoning Appeals and the Michigan City Plan Commission, and he is currently on the Sustainability Commission and the Historic Preservation Commission. I have a private practice, counseling practice here in Michigan City, and I've been on the board of Doombrook, which is our child abuse prevention agency, for 14 years, and I was president there for 3 years. The history of this initiative, 2 years ago this month, in June of 2022, Larry and I came to present to the Board of Cemetery Trustees. And they asked us for more information, so we took a week of our vacation time to do research in the state of Indiana in September of 2022. However, before we could even come back to present what people asked us to do, we got a letter saying, we really are not interested in your coming back. And then we got on the agenda again in January 2023, and we were told further discussion promised, and we were so pleased with that. And I don't think we ever came across as demanding or abrasive about this. We just wanted the conversation to continue. And then in March of 2023, we got a letter. Please be advised, the Board of Cemetery Trustees met in regular session on March 9th, 2023, and denied your request to establish a green burial section at Swan Lake Memorial Gardens in Michigan City. This is the board's final ruling on this matter. And again, certainly we were proposing the idea, but it wasn't a request in isolation. We wanted it to be part of a discussion process. So we're happy that Jeff was willing to meet with us and invite us back here today. So our wishes for this meeting today would be, first of all, on the next slide, a new openness just to the concept of green burial. We're not asking for any decisions or anything else today, but we are asking for some discussion along the way. Number 3, consideration of what would be best for Michigan City, guided by green burial guidelines that are nationwide, but not necessarily bound by any of them. And then just some willingness to continue research and discussion for all of the ups and downs of this area. So for some general principles of green burial, I'm going to have Larry walk through those with you, and then I'll come back with some other comments.
So the primary thrust of green burial is that it allows Michigan City to offer an option that's environmentally sustainable to conventional burials. And so that usually revolves around several things. That a body is not embalmed because we don't want to introduce toxic chemicals into the environment. The casket or the container of the body would be in some kind of a biodegradable vessel, usually wood. They can also be in a wicker basket. Some people choose just to be wrapped in a shroud. And then, of course, there would be no burial vault because the idea is that the body would just decompose and return itself into the earth and become nutrients for the surrounding environment and plants.
Okay. So before Larry walks you through some pictures of what we said, just some concerns that have been raised. Cemetery workers having to handle a body if a shroud was chosen for burial. But Michigan City can decide you can't be buried in a shroud. You have to be buried in a vessel of some kind as long as it's biodegradable. So not everything has to be given a green light. People have been concerned about burials without vaults for the settling of graves, but in every place we visited and interviewed cemetery personnel, the settling of graves was kept from being a problem as long as it was monitored. That had never been a problem anywhere. There was some concern about danger of animals digging up bodies if they weren't in a cement vault. That's never been an issue anywhere where green burial has been included as part of a larger cemetery. And some concern about loss of business for local funeral directors, but really if green burial was available in Michigan City, it would keep funeral business here. More of any level of business is better than missed opportunities. Is it for everybody? Of course not, but it provides an option. So Larry's going to walk you through the cemeteries that we visited. And again, Renee, Steve, and Davis, you have heard some of this before, but I think it's a good review for today.
So all of the four that we visited are all in south central Indiana. There's none up here in northern Indiana at all. And even the closest one is farther north in Michigan, and then of course over in Illinois, there are some. So northwest Indiana, given its population, would be a ripe environment for offering this option for burial. So the first place we visited was a place in Lafayette called Springvale Cemetery. And this, fortunately, was the first one because it was the worst one. It was totally unkempt and too naturalistic to the point of looking really sloppy. So we didn't even take any pictures of that one. We just kind of bypassed it and moved on to the next one, which was cemetery number 2. Which was Washington Park North, which is a large cemetery in north side of Indianapolis. And they designated a section in the back of their existing cemetery, and they divided it into 2 parts. One which was more prairie-like, with just wild grasses and wildflowers. It was really lovely. And then right adjacent to that was a wooded area. Where they plotted it all out, and then people, when they dug the graves, they just had to work closely with if it was located near a tree or something. But that's not an issue for us because we have all open space here. And then they have natural stone markers. They didn't want any, sharp cut granite or bronze or anything like that. Just a piece of natural stone that could be engraved to keep it more organic and natural feeling in keeping with this concept. The plots are a little larger. They're 4 feet by 10 feet, so that it allows plenty of room when you're digging for a new grave next to an existing one. And then because it's left natural, they only have to come through and weed whack it a couple times a year. But it lowers maintenance costs because it doesn't need to be mowed. But this is what they chose to do, and this was, again, just a small section of their cemetery. All the rest of the cemetery is conventional grass mowed and has monuments and all of that, just like we have here. So Jason, to the rear of the property. They did charge a little bit more for the graves. I forget the reason why. The maintenance is basically the same, because even if it has to be weed whacked, and there's still other maintenance that has to go on in relation to a natural marker, a natural grave site as opposed to conventional. So this is the Washington Park. And the conventional section is what you see on the right. It's conventionally mowed. And then on the left is the green natural area. And as you can see, they chose to just leave it natural with the wildflowers and grasses. And it really is quite alive and beautiful. There's butterflies flying. There goes one now.
Yeah.
Butterflies flying all over it. So it was just a lovely environment. And then if you wanted to find your loved one's gravesite, you would have to have a general idea where it was and kind of, wear boots and traipse through the grasses to find the marker in the ground if you had a marker at all. There's an example of a natural stone marker that's just set down into the ground flush. So the third cemetery was probably the nicest one, and that was in Crawfordsville. And what they chose to do was cluster the green burials in clusters of 16 in 2 rows of 8. And then rather than having individual markers, they had a column that had room for 8 names on one side and 8 names on the other side of the marker. And so if you went to visit a loved one, you would just know by looking at the marker that your loved one was in this adjacent area of graves. Now, some people did choose to still have a flat natural stone marker in addition to the engraved column. Next. We learned from the operators of this cemetery that this was a very popular option for people, and that they found that people who had moved away from Crawfordsville actually chose to be buried back in Crawfordsville because they liked this green option. And so it has turned out to be quite a good marketing tool for the local funeral homes, and it's been very popular. And they charge the same price as any other grave. This is the only cemetery we visited that's actually accredited by the Green Burial Council. And what that provides is inclusion in a national database. So it's another form of advertising of the cemetery on a nationwide basis. So this is the way it looks. So on the far left where you see the cars, that is the existing traditional, conventional cemetery. And then the requirements of the Green Building Council was that there be a buffer zone. So that's the mowed area you see in the middle. And then on the far right is the natural burial area that had just recently been weed whacked, so that's why you don't see tall growth there. And I think they wanted the buffer zone in between just to make sure that any, I think it's maybe a psychological separation between the two areas. So there's an example of the column that has the 8 names on each side for 16. And then you see a freshly buried grave there that hasn't settled down to its level position yet. And like Ted had mentioned earlier, the cemetery operators just keep an eye on it, and sometimes they even force settle it by watering it to make the soil collapse and compact faster if that's something they chose to do. And then in Bloomington, there was the White Oak Cemetery, and they chose to just designate one section of their conventional cemetery. And it only had 32 graves, but it was mowed like every other part of the cemetery and had elevated headstones, and it obviously sold out almost right away. And they don't have room to grow anymore, so that's just what they showed us. And this is a plan of their, so this section B right here, that was the only section that they designated as green burial. And that's how it looks, where you see those raised monuments right there. That's it just looks like every other part of the cemetery. But again, there's no vaults, bodies are not involved, they're in biodegradable containers, and everything else about it is normal.
So before we open this up for any questions or comments at this point, maybe even talking about some next steps, just some issues to be considered for Michigan City. None of this being decided today, of course, but just to put some things on the table. Our thought is that the location within Swan Lake possibly could be behind the two mausoleums over here in the northwest triangular corner of the property, possibly. Access, there could be a road, it could just be a path. And in the cemetery's original plan, there was already design for access for that part of the cemetery. The look could be natural or it could be groomed. The pricing could be the same as other graves, or it could be more of a moneymaker for the cemetery. Maybe specific to Michigan City is that we require a biodegradable burial vessel and not allow the shroud burials. No burial vaults would still be part of it because that was a major part of green burial. And grave markers flat to assure the area is easy to mow and no extra personnel are required to work around monuments. Very, very simple. So again, a lot of that Davis and Steve and Renee had heard before. But we'd just like to open it up, the next slide, just for any questions you might have. And the slide after that is just a placeholder slide. Up there, we're going to be next steps, what those might be, if you would be willing to share some of your thoughts on that with us today. So I'll just leave it open for questions and answers from anybody here today.
I'll just make a comment. Like I said, I met with these two gentlemen about a month ago. I thought it was a good idea to give them another chance since we have new boards, new members. I think it's something, I don't have an affirmative or a negative position about it right now. I think I'm trying to stay open-minded on it, and I think the board should too. I think first of all, we need to determine whether there's a need in our area for this, whether there's going to be a market for it, because we don't want to spend a lot of time and a lot of expense building a new section of the cemetery for this purpose and not have a market and not be able to fill it up. So I think that would be the first thing to determine whether there's a market in this area. Second of all, like I explained to the gentleman a month ago, that I think this needs to be incorporated into the bigger master plan for the rest of the property we have out here, because once this cemetery is full, we have nothing else left in Michigan City. Obviously, Greenwood's full. So if the board does decide to create a green burial section, that needs to be part of a larger master plan for all of the cemetery out here. Because like I said at the last meeting, we're being approached for things such as a pet cemetery out here. And also, we need to create a new baby land because baby land is full in Greenwood Cemetery. So, and then just the overall master plan for the rest of the property, because as I stated, Swan Lake is a very a wet soil out here, and it's hard to bury people in here without some kind of drainage system. Like I said, there's lots of times throughout the year when we have a wet season where we can't do burials, or we have to turn them down and temporarily entomb bodies in the mausoleum until the ground dries up, so we don't get stuck with tobaccos and things. So that drainage system needs to be, I guess, the number one priority. After we put the drainage system in, then we can determine where the graves are plotted out. So my suggestion would be, I'm hoping that I can get a few members maybe of the board to form a committee to actually start reviewing and creating master plan for the rest of the cemetery. Once that happens, once we decide what kind of gardens we want, what kind of burial gardens we want here, whether it's screen burial, a pet cemetery, a baby land, and additional open space for other regular burials. Once that's done, we need to probably hire an architect or engineer, because you've probably seen in the maps that we have for all of our cemeteries, everything has to be plotted out by an engineer, and then at that point it gets recorded with the county. So it's not just a matter of creating an open space and start putting bodies in the ground. It's a very formal process that we have to follow for that. So, so I don't expect the board to make a decision today. Obviously, like I say, we have to determine whether there's a need for this first, and then if there is, where we're going to put it, and then how that's going to work into the rest of the master plan as far as where we're going to place the rest of the gardens. And another thing to consider too is that eventually we're going to have to consider building. This is not in the near future, in years from now, but we're going to have to decide where we want to build more mausoleums, because obviously the two that we have out here are going to be filled years to come, so we'll have to determine where those buildings are going to be built and make sure that we're not burying bodies where we're planning on building buildings. So, but I think both of you gentlemen for coming back and sharing the information, and I'm sure the board will be happy to research this more and consider if there is a need and where that would be placed at.
Jeff, I think you really laid out the beginning of the next steps, and then of course, what's the market for this?
Yeah.
And of course, part of the master plans. Any other questions?
How would we go about determining whether there's a market for this?
I mean, that's a good question. I would think if the board's going to form a committee to research this further, they'd probably want to go maybe visit some of the cemeteries that you've shown up here and speak with the management at those cemeteries to see how business is going, to see if there's a market in those areas, and if there is, how they attract green burial for its families or people who want to bury out there. And then, I don't know, maybe it's, I mean, just thinking off the cuff here, but maybe it's a matter that maybe on the city's website, we put something out there and have a public meeting and see how many people attend, how many of the public are actually interested in pursuing this.
Any further comments or questions?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about the market, like how would we be able to do a market to find out just how many families think that this is very necessary, that we have a biodegradable green burial site. Also, my concern was how would the families be able to visit, those that would like to go back out there, and are the markers biodegradable? Like if they do decide to go back out there, are the markers, have they disintegrated and they really don't know like where their loved one is, and they would have to consent to that once they had a grave marker and that grave marker is not there anymore and it has disintegrated, are they okay with that? Just knowing that they were in that area and they're fine with it.
If your question like that is something the committee can decide, because there doesn't have to be probably no burial vault and biodegradable vessel are the two things that are probably the most ironclad pieces of this. But this cemetery may decide the grave markers are going to be like the flat grave markers everywhere else in the cemetery. Doesn't necessarily mean it has to be biodegradable grave markers.
Okay.
I think the two non-negotiables would probably be no vault and then a biodegradable vessel.
Okay.
But everything else would be up to the cemetery to decide.
We have a lot of information that we'd be more than happy to share with the committee. So we have websites that you can look at. We'll be glad to give you the names and contact people that we've talked to at these cemeteries. So if you need any of that information, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We'd be more than happy to share it.
Would we be willing to be worker bees on your subcommittee? I mean, not that we're members of the board, but very often when boards have subcommittees, you get extra worker bees. We'd be happy to be worker bees on that.
Is there a timeline that you guys are looking at? No? Okay.
I hope not.
Okay. Okay.
But we know it's going to take time, so this is why we kind of want to get the ball rolling and kind of make a little baby step progress as much as we can. But like Jeff said, the master plan is probably the most important thing right now. And the drainage issue.
Yeah.
Jeff, I'd just like to ask either Frey or Kim if they wanted to add any comments because you're from the City Building Commission and actually organizations.
It's just anecdotal. When I've talked to people about this, I've got a lot of interest. We have one person who's like, maybe it's dying decisions these times. So I got to be very interested to figure out how the hell to figure out what it is. At least from my small subset when I talk to people that have a lot of interest.
Like, that's what we heard when we met with these different superintendents of the different cemeteries. They said that it was very popular. People really liked having that option. It was less costly in some cases, not the cost of the lot, but you eliminate the cost of the burial vault. The caskets are often simpler and less expensive, no embalming. And all of the funeral directors seem to be on board with it too. As Ted mentioned earlier, they said offering another option just brings more business in for them. So,
I just wanted to say, well, I heard that Swan Lake was filling up, and this would definitely, I think, be a better option.
And before we leave, I do want to correct one thing in answer to yours. I said that the two non-negotiables in this property, and everything else would be tailor-made, but, no burial vault and a biodegradable. And we mentioned this to Davis and Steve and Renee the first time we presented. The other thing that's non-negotiable, there has to be a funeral lunch afterwards. I just want to make that comment.
Okay, we have really an option to develop a committee to explore all the options we just actually went through and the viability of what we need in Michigan City as well as the needs of the community. So I'm not the one that's making an option. Do we have an agreement to table this until we get that committee set up?
Yes, I mean,
We'll vote on that. Won't need a motion, we'll just vote all in favor of making a committee, tabling this until we get that committee's information to present at the meeting.
yes, I agree.
And we'll move forward with that.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
We have all meeting at 4:30, so same quality commission.
Oh, okay.
All right. We'll move to the superintendent's report now.
Right, so the first thing is the May burials. As you see, we have 13 burials at Greenwood for the month of May, 13 at Swan Lake for a total of 26. At the last meeting, I said I'd put this in chart form too, just to make it a little easier to understand. Blue columns are the ash burials, the rust color or yellow is the full, and then the green is entombments. And then these are the total number of burials for this year. So January we had 15, 19 in February, 20 in March, 19 in April, and 26 in May. So it really stays pretty steady, pretty steady. So it's kind of surprising that we don't have big fluctuations from month to month, but it seems to be pretty even, so it makes things easier to forecast. One of the things, there's several things that I was going to ask the board permission to purchase. One of the big complaints I've been receiving since I've been here, when we do ash burials at both cemeteries, there's actually a stand. The stand that we're using currently is the one on the right. And what it is pretty much a homemade wooden box covered with outdoor green carpeting. So we received a lot of complaints about how those things look because they're soiled, they're faded, they look pretty nasty. So I did some research. There's not a lot of options out there. The company that we use to buy most of our cemetery supplies from, Holland Supply, has one available. It's actually, I believe it's a stainless steel with a plastic top, but it folds, which makes it easier to transport out to the grave sites. And then it comes with a green carpeting. It's kind of a velvet material that we can cover it with, and then we set their urn on top. This is $306 a piece, so I'd be asking the board permission to purchase two of them.
Is that waterproof? The green?
The table is, the good thing about this is like the one we're using now, we have to set that outside to dry if it gets wet.
Oh, okay.
The new one we're looking to purchase, we actually can just pull the top off and either probably throw it in the dryer or leave it air dry. So but it's been a major, we've received a lot of complaints from the funeral homes, especially about the condition.
Yeah.
I would move that we allow you to buy it.
Yeah, I second that.
Okay. We'll vote. All in favor?
And that's one per cemetery, correct? Well, Greenwood is already full, so,
Well, everything's sold at Greenwood. we
okay,
still have
okay, gotcha, okay.
Next will be all in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries to see this bill.
Wanted to give you an update. Actually, this is another item that'll be asking the board permission for some funding. This is the exterior of Greenwood Cemetery Chapel, the mausoleum. This is another thing we've received numerous complaints about, especially since kind of summer has broken. People see the condition of the exterior landscaping. So the exterior landscaping consists of wooden timbers, and then that holds up dirt that is supposed to have some green shrubbery along with stones. So currently, there's nothing there. It's just plain dirt. The bushes that are out there are dying, and the timbers are all they're decaying out there. There's exposed nails. There's holes. So what I'd like to do is purchase more timbers to replace the bad ones. We don't want to rip out some of the dead shrubs and replace them with new ones. And then we want to cover the dirt with about 4 inches of decorative river rock. The river rock will also help. You can't see it in these pictures, but it's a sloped steel roof on this building, and there's no gutter system, so the water runs directly off onto these planters and just washes out the dirt. So we're hoping if we put some landscaping fabric covered by about 4 inches of river rock, it'll keep that ground from eroding. So.
Jeff, if you're gonna replace the bushes, just make sure you get something that's real hardy and kind of self-sustainable, themselves.
Right.
Because then you have to go and, water them all the time, it'll be more time. So get something that's a low maintenance to replace it, I would suggest.
Hospice.
Yes. Yeah. So again, this is just an example of some of the timbers that are rotten. And then one of the complaints we received a couple weeks ago is this is the picture on the right is kind of a picture of where the landscaping ends and the grass begins, and that's another area where the water is running off the roof and it's eroding the dirt underneath the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So we want to replace all that. And then the projected cost for this project, I researched it. The approximate number of timbers we would require would cost about $500. The river rock is, I think, $180 a load if we go pick it up ourselves, so it'd be about $360, I think, for 2 loads. And then the plants, bushes, I'm just estimating that about $500 for a total of about $1,360. So that's what I would be asking the board to approve today is $1,360.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll make the motion to buy it.
And I'll second that motion.
We'll vote. All in favor of this particular landscape project?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then, of course, the labor will be taken care of by our seasonal employees, full-time employees. And then the final thing, final piece of equipment that I'm asking permission to buy. Currently, we're pretty caught up on our grass right now. So our next project, and this is annual, this is about the time of the year we start trimming the bushes and the trees. I was told by our employees at both cemeteries that at one time we did have a pole saw, but it disappeared well before I started here this year. So pole saw we would use to trim up the larger trees. They're especially out at Greenwood. Currently, unfortunately, we're having to lift our employees up in the bucket of the backhoe with the chainsaw, which is kind of dangerous. So this is really a safety issue too. So we'd be able to buy a new one of these from Frontier Lawn and Rec for $616. So I'd be asking permission to purchase one of those.
Go ahead. No, you go.
Okay. I make the motion to allow him to purchase that.
I'll second.
Excellent. We have a missing member for a vote. He'll be back when we're back. Currently, we'll vote with the present people, and we're gonna say all in favor on this particular item. Aye. No negatives? Pastor Dennis, I'm not gonna run and ask him.
Hey Jeff, also getting back to the plan signatures.
We still can accept this as rules of purchase item.
Something with evergreen or boxwood, because if you put houses or something there, they die off, and then you got a mess, you gotta, clean those up, and then there's nothing there. I would get something that, stays green all winter, and
We're still in the form, so it's still passed.
Put in perennials, something else.
even in the winter, then there won't be anything, because they won't die off.
So what is it, something like maybe evergreen?
Evergreen or boxwood.
Evergreen shrub?
Evergreen boxwood, yeah.
I just want to give the board an update on some of the equipment that was approved at previous meetings that has been delivered. This is our lawn roller. The board approved that several meetings ago. This has been a big help. One of the big complaints, especially out here at Swan Lake, are all the molehills that develop every morning. So this is a very heavy-duty roller. We've been using it the last couple of days. We just took delivery of it last week, but it's been doing a good job of compacting all the molehills. And then in the spring, next spring, when the ground is still pretty wet, we'll hopefully be able to use it to roll out a lot of the ruts that have developed just from the patterns of cutting the same areas. Just like to thank the board for approving this several meetings ago, and I know the employees are happy about it too. If you remember, one of the pictures that I submitted during my presentation at the first meeting of the year was all the things that need to be repaired around here. We had 2 manholes in the road system out here at Swan Lake that were collapsing. We were able to do these at no cost. The sanitation department actually sent employees out here and they reconstructed both of these, and that would have cost us probably thousands of dollars to do on our own. So I'd just like to thank the sanitary department for taking care of these. They did a really nice job. Just to give everybody an update, I just would like to congratulate all of our employees at both cemeteries for the excellent job they did preparing both cemeteries for Memorial Day. I was told by countless people that this was the best that the cemeteries have ever looked for Memorial Day. I know the mayor complimented us, Councilman Prispolinski complimented us at the last city council meeting for their efforts. So I'd just like to thank everybody. They worked a lot of long hours, worked a lot of overtime trying to get them both prepared. And I also like to thank the sanitary district and the park department, because they also sent employees out to Greenwood to help us do the trimming and mowing too. An update on the progress of the cemetery software mapping. I'd like to introduce our intern for the summer, Isabella Lowry. She's with us for the until July, I believe. I've assigned her the duty or the task of coming up with a presentation. We have 3 vendors that we solicited quotes from, but they all offered different, features. So it's kind of overwhelming. There's so much involved in the software that it offers so much to do and use that I've tasked her with the responsibility of creating a PowerPoint presentation, and I'm hoping to call a special meeting here maybe later this month or the first part of July to actually put that presentation on for the board so we can actually explain the features of each one of the 3 software systems, and then hopefully get approval to purchase one of those systems and to start entering the information while Isabella is still with us for the summer. Because it's going to be several years to enter all of the burial information for both cemeteries. Greenwood alone, I think, is over 40,000 burials, so it's going to be a huge task, so we need to get started as soon as possible. But again, thanks to Isabella for working on that project. She's been doing an excellent job.
Thank you.
I'm going to have to leave.
Okay, right. Thanks.
Did you need to get Isabella? You're okay?
We had a quorum.
Okay.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Stay dry.
Is it still, I'm still sorry.
I better read it up.
Just gonna say, get out there before it starts pouring again.
I don't know if anybody's watched the last couple council meetings, but the mayor asked the city council to approve $150,000 in ARPA funding for all of our repair projects out here at both Greenwood and Swan Lake. At the last city council meeting, the council approved the funding, so we'll be getting $150,000 out of the ARPA funding. And then, of course, at the last meeting, the board approved contributing $150,000 to match that funding, so we're going to have $300,000 to do a lot of the work that needs to be done at both cemeteries. So that brings me to the final thing. As I mentioned at previous meetings, let's see. This is the list of priorities that I came up with a couple meetings ago, and I've been working on getting quotes. Most of the items, due to the dollar amount, require 3 quotes. I had trouble just getting 3 quotes for a lot of the stuff, but I finally did. They finally all came in. So I'll take them one by one. The Serenity Mausoleum HVAC project, and that's replacing both of the rooftop units on the Serenity Mausoleum here at Swan Lake. I had 3 quotes come in. The first was from LaPorte County Management. That was $70,121. Second quote was from Circle R Mechanical at $31,400. And the third was from H&G Heating, and that was at $34,280. And what this consists of is we're going to replace the electrical systems that are out there now. They're both, they're not gas, they're electrical. We want to replace them with gas units that heat up more quickly, so when we use them in the winter and summer, because we don't let the system run out there full time because it's rarely used. We turn if we know we have a funeral today, we'll go in there first thing in the morning and either turn on the furnace or the AC, depending on what time of the year it is. But we need something that heats it up quickly. The current system doesn't work at all, and if we replace them simply with a like system of electrical, we don't think it would do the job because the system out there has never done the job sufficiently. The second item, we voted on this at the last meeting. That was the painting of both offices. The electrical project, I received 3 quotes. First was from Marcus Electric. Second was from Current Electric. Current Electric, we invited out here. The owner of Current Electric came out and looked at all the projects, but I just learned from him yesterday that they're too busy and they declined this, but at least we made the offer and attempted to get 3 quotes. And then the third quote is from PG Electric, and they were, on most of the things, they were the lowest. If you combine all of the electrical projects that we're doing, Marcus Electric came in at about $41,786. PG Electric came in at $34,137 when you add all of them. And again, I'll go over those briefly. Swan Lake LED lighting, we want to convert all of the lighting in the office here to LED. That should have been done years ago, so we have cost savings as far as energy. Greenwood, same thing. We replaced all the lighting with LED lighting. The flagpole pole here at Swan Lake is not lighted. If we're going to display the flag 24/7, it needs to have a light on it. The Veterans Circle out here at Swan Lake, a lot of the lights don't work. We want to fix all those, convert them all to LED. The Swan Lake fuel pump out at our maintenance facility out here at Swan Lake, like I said, that's an OSHA violation. We need to run electric out there so we can install new ground level pumps that will operate electronically instead of gravity fed. We want to run electric out to our pond so we can put a full-time fountain or aerator out there. Our Swan Lake boring project, what that consists of, the electric line that runs from our office to the maintenance facility out here needs to be either repaired or put underground. All of the companies that I talked to said it would be cheaper just to bore it underground That would also eliminate the possibility of a truck snagging the lines because the lines are hanging low. And actually, last week when they delivered our roller, the truck that delivered it snagged and broke the phone line that was out here. Fortunately, we don't have phones out here. But yeah, we need to get rid of that line so that we're not having to replace it. And then same situation at Greenwood. We have a flagpole out in front of the office that's not lit that needs to have a light on it.
Speaking of flagpoles, may I ask a question about the flagpoles?
Yes.
Is there ever a time the flagpoles are flown half-mast?
We did it on Memorial Day, I believe. And then normally it's been past practice that the mayor's office, whenever there's a national event that requires the flags to be flown at half-staff or anything, it requires that we get a directive, actually all the city buildings get a directive from the mayor's office to fly your flags at half-staff. Next item would be the Swan Lake, the flooring. So as I stated, all of the flooring, the only place we have newer flooring is the Serenity Mausoleum out here at Swan Lake. But while we're doing the project, we would like just to replace all the flooring in all of our buildings and make it hard flooring because the carpeting doesn't work, especially out here. As muddy it is out here, that carpeting gets really dirty. Also, when we have an entombment in one of the mausoleums, we have a large, heavy lift that actually lift the casket up so we can slide it into the vault. It's hard to roll that thing on carpeting, so we want to make a hard surface that's actually easier to maintain. So we got 3 quotes. The first was from LaPorte County Management, and I'll go through them one at a time. Swan Lake office was $38,000. Over here to the right side, LaPorte flooring was $87.17. 32 cents, and then the last quote that we got was from Carpet Town in LaPorte, and that was for $629.15. For the Swan Lake for older mausoleum, LaPorte County Management was $38,211. LaPorte flooring was $10,950.76, and Carpet Town came in at $7,291.92, I believe. Swan Lake, the new mausoleum, the Serenity Mausoleum, LaPorte County Management, Construction Management was $27,113. LaPorte flooring, $9,734.20, and then Carpet Town was $6,530. The Greenwood office, that came in at $25,430 from LaPorte County Management. LaPorte flooring came in at $9,559.74, and Carpet Town came in at $5,746.77. The Greenwood Mausoleum, $35,317 from LaPorte County Management. LaPorte flooring came in at $13,849.29. And Carpet Town came in at $8,848.36, I believe. And then I also had them quote this room separately. Originally, my plan was to do hard flooring in this room too, but a couple of the vendors stated that it's such a large room, and we do meetings in here, that they think the hard flooring would create too much echoing in here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So I got quotes for carpeting instead, and we didn't get one from LaPorte County Management for this room specifically, but LaPorte flooring came in at $2,694.41, and Carpet Town came in at $1,934.85. One thing I will note on here, LaPorte County's management, all of their flooring quotes included surface prep. So right now, none of the vendors know what's underneath what we have out here at the moment. Theirs included all surface prep and anything that any surprises that may come up. So that's one reason why they're so high. LaPorte flooring, they couldn't guarantee any kind of price on what we might incur once the old carpeting was removed. I talked to the owner, he stated we would probably be looking around up to maybe $10,000, but he couldn't say for certain because he doesn't know what's under the flooring. So these prices don't include that. So with LaPorte's flooring's prices, there could be some unforeseen expense afterwards. And then Carpet Town, they assured me that if they find anything under here that they have to address as far as sanding or anything, any repairs that have to be done before the new flooring is put down, that these prices include.
Oh, nice.
So
Okay.
I know it's a big price discrepancy, and I double checked with Carpet Town this morning again just to make sure that that is covered. But they assured me that it is covered.
That's
So.
good.
That's good.
And then the skylights, obviously, those were approved at the last meeting. We're just waiting for the glass to come in, and they're going to get those put in. So
Is there some stained glass repaired to your?
there's one small piece of stained glass that we're still trying to find like a contractor to fix it, because it's nothing we're able to replace ourselves. So we're still working on that. Yeah. So my request would be to approve the lowest bids on all of these items so that we can get these items scheduled with the contractors. It's probably going to take a while to get a lot of this work done, so the sooner we get it approved, the better. If you add all the lowest bids up on here, we're looking at about $109,000 to do all these, considering that we have $300,000 approved. I think we're doing pretty good. We're going to have, obviously, that $300,000 about, I think our highest quote for our software system came in around 60-some thousand. So if you add that to the 109, we're looking for about $170,000 we're going to be spending on things, so we still have quite a bit of it left. So there's other projects that I haven't brought forward to the board because I didn't think we were going to have enough money, but I think we've done a pretty good job of shopping around, trying to find the lowest and responsive vendors for these projects. So I think we're going to have quite a bit of money left to do some other projects, such as painting the exterior of this building, possibly installing new windows in this building because the window frames are rotting out on this office building. And then
Painting the fence.
painting the fence.
Motion we approve purchase of all those items.
And I
have
second,
to leave.
and I second that motion.
Everybody can turn to see.
Yeah, take a seat.
Now we can vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Expenses. All opposed? Corrections
Who did
carried.
first and second? You did first and second. I'm sorry, I was talking. Who was it? Who approved first?
Steve did, and then I second it.
Oh, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, that's old business. No comments for old business?
I think we kind of went over it.
Yep.
This-
Okay, yeah. Any new business, which we also went through. Excellent.
I have a question. Maybe with some of the money, maybe we may want to consider having some form of a restroom or something out at the cemetery, because I know like the elderly, children, somewhere, either one of the little outhouses or, maybe having access to a restroom somewhere, or I don't know, because we experienced that a couple of weeks ago, and I know I sent out an email saying, hey, is there a restroom that anybody could use? So, and I know if I experienced that, I just wonder how many others, may have missed a part of the ceremony because someone had to go to the bathroom, or, someone, needed to change a child, or whatever it is.
So it has been brought up before a couple times. I've heard people mention it. Obviously, we don't have the facilities. The facilities that we do have in our offices aren't handicap accessible.
Right.
I think it'd be a big expense to do that, and I don't know if we want to let the public have access to our interior offices.
Right.
So the other option would be to actually, purchase or rent porta-johns.
Yeah.
Because I know some cemeteries do that. I wouldn't be opposed to it. Obviously, we probably have to wait till the next budget year to get that put into our budget to ask for that.
Okay.
The only issue I would see, just from my experience with the police department, I know porta potties have a tendency to explode, burn. They're kind of a target. So I think that's probably something we probably would want to talk to the park department about, because I know they do rent quite a few porta potties to put out in their parks to see what their experience has been as far as vandalism and use. But like I say, just based on my personal knowledge, I know for a fact I've seen people living in the Fort John at Gardena Park. So
That's what will happen.
Well, even if it's not like open all the time, but if we know that there's going to be a funeral that day, maybe have it open just during those hours and then have it locked, any other time. So just for safety reasons also.
It's definitely something we can look at. And if you want to remind me when our budget hearings come closer, we'll see if we can get funding, at least to test them out, to rent some, and see what happens.
Thank you. You can't change the baby and your legs up.
Well, I mean, when you got a small child and they have to go, it's nice to have something where, they can be there, or an elderly person, handicapped person that can't, wait till they get to the bathroom or.
Any other comments? Question? Need a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Nobody left.
Okay,
We're stuck here all night.
No, I find it.